And as always, as we start every lesson together, I would just like to congratulate you and thank you for being here and being responsible for your learning. Many students, they come to me and they say, Steve, I need a teacher. I need to learn to speak better. I need to improve. And I say, sure, we've got many teachers. We can help you, of course. But then maybe after one or two lessons, they think, okay, but these lessons are really cool, but is this enough? And I tell them, no, it's not enough. Teachers, no matter how great a teacher is, they're not magicians. Okay. So you need to be responsible for your learning. If you have an objective, if you need to get an IELTS band 8, or if you need to be a C1 or C2 level to get into university or get the dream job that you want, you need to take action, okay? You need to be responsible for your learning and practice as much as you can, even on top of the lessons that you're doing with your teacher, I mean, the majority of our students, they study between 1 and 3 hours a week with a teacher. 3 hours a week. Is that enough to improve your language? I mean, just think about that. You study for 3 hours a week. Let's say you're an engineering student and you study 3 hours of engineering a week. Is that enough to become an engineer, do you think? Probably not. Let's be honest, probably not. But if you do your classes with your professor, if you then go home, reflect on what you've learned, practice, do exercises, start integrating your other regular activities with your studies. So in this case, if we're talking about English, start watching TV series, listening to podcasts. If you love reading, if you love blogging, if you love chatting, texting, start doing all of these things in English. With the power of the internet, there is no excuse anymore. There are no excuses. You are connected to an entire world of English speakers. Now, okay, you're not connected to an entire world of English teachers, which is different because not all native speakers can help you learn. But there are no limits. You can interact with native speakers in some form, almost anytime you desire. Okay, so there are really no excuses for you not to be practicing. That's why I always advise my students, have a clear idea of what you want to achieve, have clear goals, clear objectives, and then we can work on a schedule to achieve that goal. Okay, planning times and days for different types of interaction, so speaking to different natives, texting different natives, writing, blogging, reading, doing some grammar activities, doing some homework, based on the class material. So really, that's what we do, and that's what we encourage you to really immerse yourself as much as possible, and be constantly training your mind in English, like any other skill. You need to be practicing it on a regular basis, even when you're on your own, when you're with other people, and you need to go and find these opportunities. And that's what we can help you do as well. If you're having trouble with this, if you would like some more advice, or if you have any questions on how you can do more practice, where you can go, who you can interact with, send me a message. Maybe write a comment or share your question in the forum, depending where you're watching this. But I'd love to hear from you. Please contact me. Subscribe, like, share on whatever platform we're on. And yeah, I mean, if you think that we can genuinely help you, please get in touch with us. Please share with your friends, and we'd be happy to help them as well. Okay, so as always, let me know how you're doing, what you've been doing recently, what English practice you've been doing. Okay, share your ideas, share your activities, because I'm sure that will help other people as well. And let's begin our lesson on phrasal verbs and idioms. Okay, so today's topic is the sharing economy. I'm super excited about this. This is a new phenomenon that I really love. I'm very passionate about business and finance, and the sharing economy is, as I said, a recent phenomenon that has just exploded all around the world. Okay, so let's dive in. That's another phrasal verb for you today. Dive in. Do you know what it means? Perhaps just leave a comment if you know what it means and how to use it. Always provide an example. Okay, that always creating a context always helps you to understand exactly how to use it, and other people will be able to see as well and get an idea. So let's dive in. And as you can see, we have some examples of different companies who make up the sharing economy. Okay, so there are 5 companies, as you can see there. Can you guess what companies they are and what they do? Okay, so just take a minute now, write them down into the chat, the comments, the forum, wherever you're watching this video, and just write down the name of the company and what service or product they provide. Some you may know, some you may not. If you don't know the company, perhaps try to guess what they do. Perhaps their logo may give you some idea. I'm looking at some of these logos right now, and perhaps some of them aren't super clear. I'm looking at the one in the top right-hand corner, black background, with a bright green K in the middle. That may be quite difficult for you to guess. In fact, it doesn't really give you any indication. But I mean, this shade of green is quite a fun color, but it's on a black background, which is quite serious. And then if you look at the font, the style of the letter, is it serious or is it sort of quite jovial, quite fun? What do you think? My opinion is the font is quite fun. It looks quite young. So it kind of gives me the impression that this company does something perhaps, something maybe innovative, something a little bit different to a regular, more traditional company, perhaps. Okay, so I hope you're writing down the companies and what they do. I'm sure you know probably the bottom 3 on the bottom row. I'm sure you know those ones. At least bottom left, I think that is probably the most famous here. The one in the middle on the bottom row is also incredibly famous and infamous. Okay. What is infamous? A lot of people confuse this adjective. Okay, infamous. Comment below if you know what that means. So infamous is when it's not the opposite of famous, as some people think. We have famous and infamous. So the pronunciation changes a little bit. The emphasis, the stress is on the infamous. It's not the opposite of famous, so not famous. It actually means famous for something bad. Yeah. So perhaps a criminal, for example. You hear about these big criminals in the news, and they become infamous. Yeah, they become famous for their bad activities. Yeah, for all the bad things they do. So I'm not saying that this company does bad things, but they have been in the news and been criticized for some of the things they do. Yeah, so they're a very innovative company, but they have been criticized for some of the things they do. Hence, they are both famous and a little infamous as well. Okay, so let's go through these now. Yeah. So we have here in the top left, the first one has kind of been done for you. Yeah. So couch surfing, CS, and we can see here in the logo. What is this? What do we call this? This is this is the globe. Yeah. So it's not quite a map, but it's the globe, it's the world, okay? And we have the world on top of a sofa, a couch, yeah. Couch and sofa, completely the same thing. So couch surfing, I'm sure you know what surfing is, yeah. Do you think we're talking about, going to the beach and riding the waves, or do you think it's something different? I'm sure many of you will know couch surfing. I've done couch surfing personally. I did it many years ago when I was young. I did couch surfing with a friend of mine in Portugal. So I'll briefly tell you the story, and hopefully it will give you an idea of what couch surfing is if you don't know already. If you do already know what couch surfing is, while I'm telling you my story, just make some notes of questions that you would like to ask me about my story. Okay? So if you don't know what couch surfing is, just listen and make notes about what it is. What do you do with couch surfing? Yeah? What does this company offer? What service does it provide? Yeah? If you do know what it does already, write down some questions to ask me about my story and I'll answer them for you afterwards. Okay, so I did couch surfing back in 2011, so quite some time ago now, getting old. And I went with a friend of mine and we went to Portugal for a week. It was my first and only time in Portugal, actually. And we landed in Lisbon. Yes, we touched down in Lisbon. Another phrasal verb for you. Touched down in Lisbon. We were there for two days, and actually we stayed in a hostel there. For the first 2 days, we explored, we moved around, checked it out, and then we moved on to the next town. Actually, we went to Aveira, was the next town that we saw, and then from Aveira we went to Coimbra, and then eventually we got to Porto, and that's where our couch surfing experience began. So we basically organized our accommodation through couch surfing, and we stayed with a group of students. If I can recall, I think there were about 6 or 7 student nurses, and they were absolutely fantastic. Some of the nicest people I've ever met. They were just so genuine, so fun, good kind of clean, honest fun. Such lovely people. They took us around Porto. They showed us the parks, the beaches, the city. They took us to pubs and bars in the evening, to say thank you for hosting us. We reciprocated by cooking dinner, preparing food for everyone. I remember we made Italian food one night. The next night we did a barbecue and everyone started playing music together and singing. I have those videos somewhere, and I'm still in contact with these people today. So for me, it was a true life travel experience. And some of those friends that I made actually came to visit me as well in Italy while I was living there. So that's a brief example, brief story, personal story of mine. I hope you've understood now what couch surfing is. Yeah. So if you haven't already, please type that into the comments, into the forum. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have written down about my experience, or about how you can do couch surfing. So couch surfing is a website. You can simply go onto the website, you create a profile, kind of like Facebook, and it is created for traveling. Yeah, it's accommodation. And you basically find people who are willing to host you, and you can either, well, you basically stay there and with whatever they can offer, whether it's a sofa, whether it's a bed, whether it's a floor. Usually it's completely free, and guests usually either give a gift, or they offer to help around the house or do some shopping or some cooking, something nice to kind of say thank you for hosting, because it's free. Usually couchsurfing is incredibly enriching, enlightening. You meet lots of great people, you have great experiences, you learn, you grow. But you have to be careful on couchsurfing, especially if you're perhaps a young solo female traveler. Be careful who you're staying with. But anyway, you can find out all about that on the couchsurfing website. All right, awesome. So that is couchsurfing. Couchsurfing was probably one of the first companies out of this group here who were really involved in the sharing economy from the beginning. Yeah, it was a great initiative, and it's still running today. So yeah, check it out. Okay, we'll go to the next one now, which is this one here, the K with the black background. And yeah, this one, for example, I haven't used yet, but I would like to use it actually. Yeah, so this one is Kickstarter. Kickstarter. So this is another phrasal verb actually. So to kickstart something is to start something very, very quickly. Okay, it's usually used with perhaps like some kind of machinery or a motor. You would kickstart a scooter really quickly. In fact, on a scooter you have there are two ways to start a scooter. With the electric start, so you push the button and you rev the accelerator, or if that doesn't work, you have it's like a pedal at the back of the scooter, and you push your foot down on it to start the motor. And in fact, that part is called the Kickstarter. Yeah, so that's what Kickstarter is. It's to start something very quickly. And yeah, this website is dedicated to starting projects, creating projects very quickly. So now this field is huge. There are many different websites doing this, but I think Kickstarter was the first, or at least one of the first. And they basically, you can submit your project to Kickstarter, and you basically state how much money or investment that you need to kickstart your project, to get this project started. And people who donate, essentially it's a donation, then they get rewarded with something like perhaps a discount on the product, or they're giving some goodies, some t-shirts, some gadgets, or something exclusive as a thank you. So that's Kickstarter. So if you've got any exciting projects that you're thinking about, please tell me, because I love helping people create new projects. But Kickstarter is a great place for you to make your ideas a reality. Yeah. Okay, so the next one here, I don't think this next one needs much of an introduction. The logo is very strange. If you've never seen it before, you probably never guess what it is or what they do, but I'm sure you have seen this logo. They have really revolutionized the travel and accommodation industry. Yeah, Airbnb. Do I need to say any more than that? So it's kind of basically couch surfing, but paid for. So why would people pay for the same service that ultimately another company is offering for free? Why? Well, I don't know. I'd love to hear your ideas. Please post your ideas. You can do that right now. In the meantime, I can give you what I think are the possible answers. Perhaps when people pay for something, they feel that they will get a certain quality of service. Perhaps they feel safer by paying and knowing that perhaps there are some criteria, there are some standards, some protection there. I think Airbnb also provides some insurance, at least for the homeowners. Um, yeah, and perhaps, paying for a service. As I said, you can also choose the quality you want. If you want cheap, you can go really, really cheap and sleep on someone's sofa bed, or you can go, more expensive than a hotel room and have somebody's entire villa or apartment. Whereas on couch surfing, you can't really do that. It's quite restricted in the sense of, you kind of take what you can get, what you're given. So it's usually a room if you're lucky, or maybe just a sofa, or even just on the floor. In fact, we were lucky. Me and my friend, or my friend and I, we had two mattresses that were just like on the floor, like camping kind of mattresses, roll-out mattresses. So we weren't too bad. That was quite lucky. But anyway, Airbnb is a monster. Has just blown up, and it's good. And now there are similar companies doing what they do as well. Moving on now. This one, if you haven't guessed what this is, I know the company, but I wasn't familiar with this style of their logo. Just to give you a clue, if you haven't got it, if you imagine this you holding it with your hands, what is this? Imagine, try to guess what I'm actually doing here. If I'm in this position, what action would I be doing? So have you got it yet? I'm sure you've got it. I'm sure you have. And also it looks like, it looks like a letter. What letter does it resemble, do you think? Well, it's definitely a U, right? And the U stands for Uber. I'm sure you know Uber. They have essentially revolutionized the car sharing industry. So I know a lot of taxi drivers are not happy about this, and there's been a lot of protests in certain countries like Italy and Spain, and there's a lot of controversy whether it should be legal or not. And I think it's great. I think it's progress. It's a byproduct of progress, and there are going to be difficulties, but people want good service and they want to pay a low price for it. Deal with it. Deal with it. Okay. In many countries, they don't like disruption. They don't like change. And I disagree. I think you need change. I think we need to go forward and just keep making things better, improving, and improve everybody's quality of life. So Uber, yeah, instead of taxis, you basically you find a driver on your phone. It'll tell you how much you're going to pay approximately. You can choose even like, a style of car, one that's more expensive, one that's cheaper. If you want something more comfortable, perhaps you're going on a longer journey. And, you're helping local people as well. These are local people. They're not like taxi drivers. Nothing wrong with a taxi driver. Don't get me wrong. But it's regular people who are, using their car to make some money. And I think that's great, especially in countries where perhaps there's not a lot of employment. I think it's awesome. I think it's really, really good. Taxi drivers will have to adjust, if they're feeling threatened by competition, improve your service, start offering other things, make your taxi ride an experience, charge more, charge less, make it unique. Don't just complain about it, but that's my opinion. And then finally, we have the Khan Academy. Do you know what that is? We got a pretty little tree there with a hand in the logo. So I'm imagining this is the tree of knowledge, I would say. So Khan Academy, as the name suggests, is an academy, an institution. It's a place of learning. This was a great idea, that Mr. Khan had to help people. Basically, he started creating YouTube videos of basically him explaining complex topics, perhaps on finance or economics, science, mathematics, and he would break things down and teach you how to do it. And obviously, in a video format, you can go back, you can listen again, you can reanalyze it. amazing, completely free as far as I'm aware. And Khan Academy also has just, gone huge, has blown up, as we say, another phrasal verb for you. I hope you're writing these down. Please write these down. And the idea is that you try to reuse them. Okay, sorry, on a side note, write these phrasal verbs down. And when I ask you to comment and type and interact, try to use them. Okay, if you don't use them, you're going to forget them. Use them or lose them. Okay, use them or lose them. So yeah, Khan Academy, check that out if you need help with, finding academic solutions to problems. Okay, let's go on to the next part of the class. Okay, so we haven't got into the formal teaching of any phrasal verbs or idioms yet, but you have at this point already heard me use some phrasal verbs, at least 3 that I can remember, and some idioms as well. Okay, so just take this moment, recap. What have you learned so far? Yeah, so we've discussed some companies and their services that they provide. Okay, companies that make up the sharing economy. You've heard some phrasal verbs. You've heard 1 or 2 idiomatic expressions. Okay, so just remind yourself of what they are. Keep them fresh in your mind. And remember, when I ask you to comment and write and type, try to use them. Yeah, we've just off the top of my head now, I haven't written these down, so I'm trying to remember. So blown up, touchdown. There's been a few, use it or lose it. So there's some good expressions in there. Okay, this is all natural language. There's nothing scripted here. Okay, this is just me speaking naturally, as well as you've noticed already. My pace, the speed at which I'm speaking is quite natural. It's quite quick. So don't worry if this is difficult for you. It should be subtitled as well. Hopefully you can see that down here somewhere. So don't worry if you don't quite get everything. The idea is you don't need to understand every single word. That's not important. That's not the objective. Okay, remember, you need to have an objective for every activity. Your objective here is to learn phrasal verbs and idioms. That's it. Okay, if you follow my stories, if you can follow what I'm saying and you understand, let's say, generally everything that I'm saying, you don't need to understand every individual word. Okay, so don't get hung up on that. Another phrasal verb. Don't get hung up on that. Don't worry too much about it. Don't slow down because of that. Okay, keep going, keep going. Speed is key. It is important. Not super fast, but you need to keep moving forward. Okay, great. So hopefully now you can see my screen. Pause video. Yeah, so now you should be able to see my screen, and we've got 3 questions, super simple questions, which I hope you may have some ideas about. Yeah, so the sharing economy, what is it? By now you should know or have a very good idea of what the sharing economy is. Yeah, so all of those companies that we just considered, that we just spoke about, what do they all have in common? What do they all do? Any ideas? Maybe just to write some things down, jot down some ideas, jot down some ideas. Pause this video if you'd like to think about it before I give you sort of the answer. Okay. So, we looked at these companies. Some are car sharing, some share accommodation. Some are free, some are paid for services, some involve donations. Okay, you might not even get anything back. Yeah, you're simply donating, and some are sharing knowledge. Okay, so I think it's quite clear the idea is sharing. Yeah, these companies are providing services that share. They call people to share their resources, basically pool their resources. Yeah, bring resources together to create new possibilities, whether it's free or whether it's paid for. Okay, so that is the sharing economy. Importantly, next question, why has it developed? Why didn't this happen 50 years ago? Why is it happening now? Okay. And what do you think the benefits are or the disadvantages? You know? Sometimes these things seem really, really great on the surface, but then, perhaps behind the scenes, another expression for you, behind the scenes, um, it might not be so rosy. It might not be as perfect as it seems. Okay, so just take a second there, have a think, write down some ideas. Feel free to respond to other people. Please respect other people's ideas and opinions. Be polite, but please interact. I really encourage you to ask people for more information, agree with them, disagree with them, justify your own thoughts. Okay, this is all part of language learning. Yeah, interacting with other people is an incredibly fundamental part of learning. And in fact, in the Cambridge exams, you're tested on it in the speaking parts, how well you interact with the other people. Because when you're in reality interacting with people in everyday life, in society, it's not always going to be simple. You're not always going to meet people who say yes, no, like I agree, I disagree. You're going to find people who feel very strongly or passionate about certain subjects, and they will challenge you. They will challenge your ideas, your beliefs, your experiences. So you have to be prepared for that. Of course, always respectful, always in a relaxed way, but you need to linguistically be prepared to defend your perspectives and appreciate other people's opinions. Try to comprehend. Great. So I hope you've been able to write some things down, jot some things down in the meantime, make some quick notes, jot down. Why has it developed now? Well, let's take a look at this quick video, and perhaps this will give you a better idea. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that video. It's quite cool, right? It's quite fun, cartoony, but it breaks down the ideas and the concepts for you quite well. Yeah. So just to kind of check your answers, why has the sharing economy developed in the recent years? Well, I think mainly because of technology. Everything is connected now. Everybody has access to everything via their phone. Internet is so good. Everyone's got a smartphone. And because of this kind of connectivity, everything is obtainable in an instant, So, and as I said, because of that, everything is now becoming cheaper. Yeah, companies are trying to offer better services at cheaper prices and kind of work on quantity, mass quantities, because now they can reach people all over the world thanks to the internet. They don't need to physically be in every country to do business anymore. They just create an application and they can reach everyone anywhere. Truly amazing, truly amazing. Some of the benefits, as we've already mentioned, it makes services a lot cheaper for people, which means it's more accessible for a lot more people. Perhaps environment as well, car sharing. We need to push on with that, reduce the amount of cars we have on our roads. We are polluting. We are like destroying our planet. Cars is not the only thing, of course, but it is one big contributing factor that we have the power to reduce. In theory, politicians would definitely argue differently. But let's not get into a political discussion. So we've said more accessibility, lower prices, lower costs. It's better for the environment in some cases. Any other benefits there? Perhaps more competition, which leads to better quality services, more choice for the consumer. And having more competition means higher quality, higher standards because companies are competing for our business. Yeah. So those are some of the benefits. And in the next part, we're going to be looking at perhaps some of the drawbacks, some of the disadvantages to the sharing economy as well. It's not always as rosy as it seems. So you're probably excited about getting your teeth into some new vocabulary, yeah? Phrasal verbs and idioms, which is what this lesson is all about. So you should be able to see on your screen now a list of phrasal verbs. These are all connected to traveling. Okay, so whenever you are going to be traveling in the future, and perhaps you're reading blog articles, perhaps you're reading, magazines about destinations or reviews about, people who have written about their experiences on TripAdvisor, you're probably going to find a lot of this vocabulary. Okay, so this is super useful stuff. Phrasal verbs is how native speakers communicate. All right, they are fundamental to your language improvement, yeah, to your development and helping you to sound and communicate more like a native speaker. Okay, so this is why they're really important. A lot of people get overwhelmed with phrasal verbs because one phrasal verb can have multiple meanings. So that's why we teach them through topics, yeah? So they're context-based learning. Context-based learning, yeah. So we learn the meaning and the use of the phrasal verb in the context. So what you can see now is a list from A to O, okay? I don't usually just give you a huge block of vocabulary because that's not the most effective way to learn. That's a lot of words and you will have difficulty remembering them. So the task is for you to actually read the phrasal verbs, try to absorb what they mean. Some you perhaps know, others that you don't. But what I want you to do is find an image that represents the definition for each of these phrasal verbs, okay? A nice way is to create your own PowerPoint. I do this with a lot of my students. Create your own PowerPoint, and for each slide, have one phrasal verb, have the definition, and find an image. This is what your job is. Find an image that represents the definition. Okay, so for example, let's do the first one together as an example. So we have drop off, yeah, to drop someone off at the airport. So this is a transitive phrasal verb, which means it can split, yeah. We can divide the verb and the preposition, and we put the object right in the middle. So drop someone off at a particular place. So often when my sister needs to go to the airport, she will ask me, hey Steve, can you drop me off? Can you drive me to the airport and leave me there? Okay, so a drop off is something quick. I don't park the car and stop and wait with her until she gets on the plane. No, drop off is usually quite quick. Yeah, so I take her to the airport. I stop outside the airport. She jumps out. We say goodbye, and she goes. Yeah, so I'm dropping her off. So what I would do here is I'm going to put an example up on the screen right now for you, so you can see I've got my phrasal verb. I've got my definition, and then I've got a picture of the action actually in progress. Yeah, so in the future, when you come back to this, you'll have a very clear idea of the meaning and the context that you can use this phrasal verb in. That's the idea. Okay, so if you can do that for all of these phrasal verbs, it will take you a little bit of time. Give yourself 30 minutes to do this activity. The key to learning vocabulary, you need to constantly review it, okay? If you're serious about learning languages, serious about improving your vocab, okay, set reminders. Literally set a reminder on your phone, on your computer, write it on your calendar, however you remind yourself. Set a reminder for every 3 weeks, Okay, especially if it's a lot of vocabulary, you may need to look at it every 2 weeks. Okay, that in itself is step one. Step two is once you review this vocab, practice it, use it, produce it. So if you're having lessons with a teacher, use it. Start talking to them about their vacations, about traveling. Use this vocabulary with them. Ask them questions, get them to ask you questions, and use it. All right. If you don't have the possibility of speaking to native speakers or to other language learners, write, blog, write notes, write stories to yourself, to pen pals, write to me. Remember, there are no excuses. You can always find someone in the 8 billion population that we live in this world. You will find someone who will want to do this with you. Okay. And if you can't find anyone, let me know and I can help you. Okay. We do this all the time with all of our students. So I will see you in about 30 minutes. All right, welcome back. I hope you found some really good, kind of clear, specific examples for each of these phrasal verbs. Just for a fun activity, I'm going to play like a little game. It's like a storytelling game with you. I haven't prepared this. This is completely natural, okay? And you'll be able to tell because I'm going to hesitate. I'm going to speak slowly and stutter. So, even native speakers, even teachers, they need to slow down, think, and process what they're going to say, So as a learner, that's perfectly normal for you too. So I will do this activity as an example, and then I would like you to do it as well. If you want to record yourself doing it, that is a fantastic way of learning, yeah? Recording yourself, watching yourself, listening to yourself, identifying your errors, your strengths and weaknesses is a great way of improving. Not everybody likes doing it. It takes some time to get used to it, but I do recommend you do it. If you do record yourself, please upload your video if you can, or create a link that we can watch it together. We can comment, share it with us, with the group, with the other students. It's all about helping each other. The more we help each other, the more we can learn together and improve. Okay. So I'll give you an example of my phrasal verbs story. I hope I can do this effectively for you. All right. So, one day, one day my sister dropped me off at the airport because I was traveling to another country for my birthday. This was a present from my family. So I was going to New York for a birthday present. So my sister dropped me off at the airport in the morning, and I checked in about 2 hours before my flight. I had to check in my suitcase. And I like getting to the airport early so I can go nice and relaxed. Before I got to the airport, I had to organize my hotel stay. So I actually checked in online, and I scheduled my checkout at a particular time because the hotel asked me to establish my checkout time, so they knew when they could come in and prepare the room, for example. So when I jumped on the plane, flew to New York, 8 hours, landed in New York City, and because I was feeling very, very rich, I had a driver come and pick me up from the airport, and we set out to get to the hotel where I was staying in New York City. While we were going, we saw lots of different places in the city, the huge buildings, the skyscrapers, and in fact, as we left the airport, I saw some other planes taking off, and then I got into my car with my driver. and it was, I felt relaxed and relieved because it's great to get away for a break, for a short period of time to kind of rest from work. And my goodness. And then once I got to the hotel, I spoke to the receptionist, and we got on very well. That's actually a different phrasal verb. To get on well with someone is to have a good relationship with them. To climb on board in this case, oh goodness, I can't even get this one. Very difficult. Well, I got to my hotel room, and I got on my bed. That's not even very correct. I'm gonna have to skip that one. I'm gonna have to skip that one. And I was tired. I was jet lagged, so I was like, "Come on, Steve, you got to speed things up. We got to speed up and do things quicker." Yeah. So I showered, I got dressed, and then I couldn't find my jacket. So I was looking around my hotel room, and to find my jacket because it was quite windy outside. Um, and I was looking around for ages, and I was trying to hurry up because I was wasting time. So I went back to the reception because I thought I'd left my jacket down there. Found my jacket, and I asked for an Uber, and the receptionist, she saw me off and walked me to my Uber to see me off, and she told me goodbye, enjoy New York City, and I look forward to seeing you later on when you return. My goodness, that was a really terrible story. I'm really sorry, but I told you it was unscripted. It was completely natural, and I got all of them except for one. Get on. That really got me. So see if you can do that activity. Just invent the story, go through each phrasal verb, invent this story, and see what comes out at the end. It's a lot of fun, and again, it's getting you to practice producing these phrasal verbs in the same context, yeah? So in a traveling context. Once you've done this activity, try to do it perhaps with other different contexts, or change your story as well. That's once you've had some practice with it. All right, enjoy and let me know how it goes. I look forward to seeing your videos. Hey guys, so I'm sure you're familiar with the website you can see on the screen there. I'm sure you've used this many, many times. When was the last time that you used Airbnb? Where did you go? Where did you stay? How much did you pay? Some people, they think that Airbnb is a cheaper solution, but I'm not too sure, like before I travel, I always check Airbnb and hotel prices now, because sometimes maybe you might pay, I don't know, let's say in euros, you may pay 10 or 20, maybe 30 euros more. But the difference in quality that you're receiving can be huge. Hotels may include like a huge buffet breakfast for you, overlooking a wonderful garden or the ocean. I think the last time that I did this was I went to Gran Canaria in the Canary Islands. And, I was looking for accommodation in the capital, Las Palmas. And there really wasn't much difference between Airbnb accommodation and some of the hotels. I'm not talking five-star hotels. I think in the end, we found a four-star hotel. It was quite simple. It wasn't amazing. Certainly wasn't one of the best hotels I've ever been to. It was still four-star. But what did it for me, what sold me, was the buffet breakfast, which you had downstairs on the first floor, but it was like right on the ocean. Like we had these big, huge glass windows, like transparent, and it was overlooking the beach and this just beautiful ocean. And, you had this huge buffet breakfast. You could just keep refilling, keep eating coffee as much as you wanted, just in front of the ocean. And we literally spent, I think, 3.5 hours there, just enjoying breakfast together, enjoying the view, which was just amazing, watching people kind of walk by on the boardwalk. Las Palmas has a beautiful extended I think like 5 kilometer boardwalk right on the beach. Spectacular. If you're ever there, definitely go and check that out. It's really nice. And there are surfers there, big surfing area. Um, and yeah, for us, it made sense to go to the hotel instead of just an Airbnb to save like 10 or 20 euros. Um, it didn't really make sense for me, but perhaps you have different stories. Let me know. Tell me about your Airbnb experiences. Try to use some of the phrasal verbs, try to use some of the idioms that we've already discussed so far. And in the next slide, we're actually going to look at phrasal verbs connected to traveling. So that's coming up. For now, yeah, how was your accommodation? Can you describe it? How was your host? Were they welcoming? Did they give you lots of information? Too much or too little? Were they shy? Were they extroverts? How was your experience? Because when you go to a hotel, it's very different. It's very professional. Um, for some people, that's a good thing. For some others, perhaps it's a bit too cold. People prefer, a more personal interaction, more personal experience, which is, I think, one of the reasons why Airbnb has become so popular. But it's not for everyone. And as we mentioned before, Airbnb may have a bad side to it. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is share your ideas, share your experiences with the questions that you can see on the screen. Use the phrasal verbs and idioms that you've heard so far and that you should have written down by now. Share your experiences with us. Now we're going to watch a video, and I want you to make notes on this video about all of the things that the host needs to change. Okay, so this is it's a fun video. Watch it, enjoy it, and make notes as you watch about what the host needs to do better, what they need to change, or what they shouldn't do at all. All right, and tell me if you've had a similar experience to this. Okay, guys, so you should be able to see the next screen, which is all about travel idioms. So far, we've looked at phrasal verbs, we've looked at some videos, we've talked about some stories, we've looked at your experiences with the sharing economy. Now we're moving on to travel idioms. Okay, so idioms are like expressions that sometimes have a completely different meaning to what the words actually are. They're kind of similar to phrasal verbs, they're just not always verbs. And they're just common expressions that we use in English. And I'm sure you have a lot of common expressions in your own language as well. In fact, before you do this activity, I would love to hear, I'd love to see and read some of your own travel idioms from your own language. You can write them in your own language if you'd like, and I'll try to understand them. Or you can try to translate them as well. Translating doesn't always, especially with idioms, translation is not the best way to communicate the idea. So you may just want to write the definition, what it actually means, rather than directly translating each individual word. I'll leave that up to you. We can have some fun with it, of course. And now let's dive in. You remember this one? You remember this phrasal verb, don't you? Let's dive into the idioms. So, how many idioms can you see on the screen? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5. Okay, we have 5 idioms. There are many, many more, but we try not to overload you. 5 to 8 pieces of vocabulary at a time is usually the right number for you to actually kind of remember, practice, and play with. Before we did the phrasal verbs, I gave you a big list, but that was because the activity was different. It was you finding the images, and we'd already given you the definitions. Now here we want you to actually create the idiom, and then we'll look at the definitions together. Okay, so here at the top of the page, we have half of the idiom. We have the beginning of the idiom. Get off the beaten, for example. And your job now is to match the ending of the idiom. Yeah. So get off the beaten. What is the last word in this phrase, in this idiom? Is it track, vulture, it, budget, or fortune? You might not know. This might be the first time that you hear it, and that's fine. A lot of the time with these idioms, there's not a formula or a magic solution to guessing what the idiom is, okay, or how to create it. Sometimes you either just know or you don't. One maybe tip that I can give you is say out loud to yourself. Say each possibility out loud to yourself, and perhaps one of the possibilities will sound more natural to you. Because you may have heard this before, your receptive skills are working all the time, especially now as you're listening to me. You're picking up a lot of vocabulary, but subconsciously. So you're not thinking about it actively or consciously, but it is entering your mind, your vernacular, your vocabulary. And if you hear it 2 or 3 more times, you'll think, yeah, I've heard this before. I know this. You might not know what it means exactly, but you will. Okay, once you start to focus on it and realize that you know it, then you'll start to process what it really means and how to use it, right? So try it. Get off the beaten track. Get off the beaten vulture. Get off the beaten it. That doesn't sound right. Get off the beaten budget. Get off the beaten fortune. So which one do you think it is? You can leave a comment if you want. I'll do this one with you, okay, just to help you get started. So in fact, it is get off the beaten track. Get off the beaten track. Okay, so that is the expression, and we will look at the definitions and examples in the next slide. Okay, so right now, don't worry about what they mean, how it's used, the construction. Don't worry about any of that for now. Objective now is to just create the idiomatic expression, complete each one correctly. Okay, so pause the video, try to match them all up, type them up in the comments, write them in your notebook, do both if you can, and I will now provide you the answers in the next clip. Okay, welcome back. I hope that wasn't too difficult for you. I'm sure it wasn't. Some of them are quite intuitive, even if you haven't heard them before. So here are the answers now, as you can see on the screen. So we have the first one, get off the beaten track, as we went through in the example. Spend a fortune, culture vulture, rough it, and shoestring budget. Okay. So now you know what the idioms are. Now we can focus on the next step, which is to understand what they mean and then understand how to actually use them in functional language. So what I would like you to do now for this exercise is write down the questions that I ask you. Okay, so listen to my questions and write them down exactly as I say them. Okay, so you need a pen, you need paper, you need to be listening, and you need to be ready to write. Okay, so question number 1. When you go traveling, do you often get off the beaten track, or do you go to the tourist hotspots? I'll say that again for you. So when you go traveling, do you often get off the beaten track, or do you go to the tourist hotspots? Okay. Question number 2. When do you usually spend a fortune? When do you usually spend a fortune? Number 3. Nice and simple question here. Are you a culture vulture? Do you like visiting lots of monuments and historical buildings? Number 4. Have you ever had to rough it? Have you ever had to rough it? When, where, Why? And number 5, is it possible to travel the world on a shoestring budget? Is it possible to travel the world on a shoestring budget? Those are your 5 questions. Write them down. As you're writing them, you'll be thinking about these questions. You'll already be processing possible answers in your mind. Okay? So what I would like you to do now is look at these questions and understand what are they asking you? What is the question asking you? Most of them have a bit of a context, and write your replies in the comments. Let me know about your experiences, what happened, why, where it happened, when it was, and try to use these idiomatic expressions. If you use them incorrectly, I will comment and try to guide you to the correct usage. Okay? If you've got any questions, as always, don't hesitate to ask me. Just leave messages and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So in the meantime, while you're doing that, I will give you some examples just to provide you with a model and show you how I would use it in a natural conversation. Okay, so for example, when I go traveling, I love to get off the beaten track. Okay, I despise going to all the tourist hotspots where they're super crowded, people pushing and shoving to get a photo, and you can't sort of relax and enjoy the moment, and I don't think you really see the real place and know or meet the real people. So that's why I love to get off the beaten track, go to places that nobody knows about, or few people know about, or few people see, and spend time with local people, And I try to do that by speaking to locals, asking them where's good to go, where's good to eat, getting some recommendations, and kind of exploring some places that are unheard of or not as popular anyway. Okay. When I'm traveling, it depends on what kind of trip I'm going on. If it's more of an experience kind of trip, an adventure, something that lasts maybe, 2 weeks, 3 weeks or more, then I try to avoid spending a fortune. I mean, sometimes you can end up spending a fortune anyway, if you're on the road for a long time, between accommodation, food, experiences, entertainment. You can end up spending quite a lot of money. But the same can be said for a short break. The justification being, oh, I'm only visiting this place for 2 days. Let's spend a little bit of extra money because we won't be here for very long anyway. So you need to be careful when you're traveling how to manage your money and your expenses. I'm a conservative, moderate culture vulture. I love learning about cultures. I love learning about foreign cultures, how people live, languages, different foods and lifestyles. I love all of that. So that's the side that I enjoy. The more academic side, perhaps going into ancient buildings, reading the history about different monuments, visiting museums, depending on what they are. They're not my favorite thing to do. I've seen some fantastic museums that are interactive, engaging, digital, and kind of advanced. Those are really, really great because they capture your attention. But the more traditional museums are not really for me, unfortunately. Okay, rough it. I have had to rough it once or twice in my life when I was younger. I remember I roughed it in Bordeaux train station one night. So I had been out with my friends and I wasn't able to get a train home at night. I missed the last train back home, and so I had to rough it in the train station until the next train or the first train departed in the morning. So effectively, I slept in the train station, sleeping rough. when you are sleeping extremely uncomfortably and usually in the street. So that was one of my experiences there. And yeah, I think it's possible to travel on a shoestring budget. I really do. We've seen things in the sharing economy where they can be free or incredibly cheap. If you're smart about your traveling, if you don't need luxury and you're not extravagant, I think you can travel and see a lot of places for next to nothing, for very low amounts of money, very, very low cost. So I think it's absolutely possible. Okay, I hope those examples kind of help you to understand how to use these idioms, and I hope they'll help you to create your own examples. All right, so I look forward to seeing yours. And again, if you want to create your own videos, I can't promise that I can watch all of them, but I will watch as many as I can, and I will give you feedback on the videos. Okay, thank you. So, okay, guys, so that actually concludes this lesson on the sharing economy. Well, from my part anyway. But there are a few more activities for you to do, as you'll be able to see in the course. So we do have an article from the BBC that we would like you to read and answer the following questions. Subsequently, we then move into a debate, and we would like you to jot down your opinions based on the article, okay, whether you agree, whether you disagree, state your reasons why. And as a final conclusion to this lesson, you can either write us an article, like an essay, explaining your reasons for and against, if you agree with the sharing economy article or not. Or equally, you can make a video recording and post that instead. In either case, please tag us on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, and even on YouTube if you wish, so other people can see how you're learning, and perhaps they can help you. You can help them. And that would be great for us as well. Okay, so great. I look forward to seeing your work. I hope this lesson's been really enjoyable for you. And I look forward to the next phrasal verb and idioms lesson with you. Thanks, and see you then.